So the tech talk this week, we decided to do system admin roles and permissions. Excuse me. And this came about. There's a lot of questions that we get in the ticketing system. People trying to figure that out, and it's a complicated subject sometimes. So we just want to kind of hammer that out. So you can see we have a few different topics we want to go over, and let's go ahead and get started. Let's see. So the first topic is kind of the default user roles. So just to kind of talk about what those are. The default roles are really ones that cannot be changed for the most part. They kind of have set responsibilities. So we have like students, tutors, instructors, and those ones, typically your students, you can, relabel any of these roles. You could call them advisors for tutors, or students, you could call clients, or whatever you want to call them, professors instead of instructors. But each of these are basically set to interact with the system in a certain way. So your students would be the ones that would be receiving services, and really we're going to be tracking their visits and how they interact with the system. Tutors, those are going to be the people that have schedules in the system, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be available for the students. And finally, the instructors are pretty much in the system so that we can report back to them, but they can also refer students over to your center. So there's kind of these set roles that they have, set views that they have. And then you can see those under administration user accounts. There's a left side filter. We'll see that in a second, but that's where you would see the different roles in there. Now, if you're also looking at that section, what are these new roles? So you see we have something called moderator and super moderator. So those you may not be familiar with, but just keep in mind these are for the engagement board, and they're pretty much in there so that they can moderate the tasks that they can do on the social wall. So maybe they are, going in looking at flag posts that your users have flagged as maybe inappropriate or something like that. And then they can determine what they want to do with it, if they need to delete the post, if they need to talk to the student, or whatever the case may be. And there's just two different levels. So I think the super moderator can pretty much do anything, whereas the moderator only the things that are flagged, I believe that they can adjust. And then the last thing here is how do we give them more access? So we're talking about basically setting role-based permissions. So this isn't basically making them an admin. This is basically taking their existing role and giving them additional permissions. So we're going to look at that under the administration control panel and the user account settings. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that and take a look. Okay, so under administration user accounts, these are those left side filters I was talking about. So I can do only students if I want to just see all my students, and they could have multiple roles. So you can see this user here is a student, a tutor, and an admin. They may not be like college-wide admin, but they might have admin abilities, and we'll see how to do that later. But yeah, this is those things. Each user, when I look at them under their security tab, this is where those roles are going to be assigned. So I have every one of these first three roles, the student, tutor, instructor role, I'm going to usually get a different tab up here. So because they're a student, they have enrollment. If they're a tutor, we have assignments. And then the instructor role, they're going to have instructor assignments or class assignments, basically. Now, what we want to see is, since I did mention this, the moderator and super moderators, if I look at those, and I'm just going to uncheck all these. So I have a few of those people that help me moderate that social. So it's really just to kind of spot who those people are there. I have those options. Excuse me. Now, if I wanted to assign somebody to that, if we look at the, what is it? Hold on, I think that's a bad example. That's my account, let me use a different person. So if we look at their public profile, we have both the user moderator and the super moderator where I can assign them those permissions. And we have that in our documentation, what exactly each of those can do. So if you wanted to look that up, I will be providing some links to the documentation later. So, all right. And then how can I give these roles like more abilities than what they can naturally? So some of the things is the student role, for instance, they're only going to be able to see things that are related to themselves, and somewhat with the tutors as well. So there's things that we can do and adjust to maybe give them a little more access. So I'm going to go to administration and the control panel. And then we're going to go to under website settings, it's user accounts. Okay, and down here in the second heading down, we can scroll down or you can click this and go to access restrictions. So we have uh, certain permissions that are available to give the students more access. So for instance, maybe I want my students to be able to see the session log screen when they log in. And this is really only going to give them access to their data, but like where they can see their data within the system on that system log, session log screen. Additionally, I can give students access to the appointment wizard, which if I needed them to use like the older appointment wizard, I could actually check that off and give them access to that. And then this applies to all users that are not admins. If you want them to be able to edit their own contact or email address. So in some cases, you may not want that to happen. So you'll either check or uncheck that. Additionally, for tutors, we have things like the tutor can edit their own schedule. They can view all the sessions because like I said, by default, it does make that session log view only apply to the visits that they've had with students. So you could actually do it. In the case of advisors, they may want to know, what happened in previous meetings, even with tutors. To some extent, you'd want that knowledge too. So you can give that to them. Just the whole role of the tutors would get that permission. And so we're not editing individuals, it's actually the role itself that we're giving these extra permissions. Also, if you want them to be able to edit their own comments after they're made, and I know you can limit how long after the session that these tutors can edit their comments. It's down here, for instance, so I could say, okay, they can edit their own comments, but only up to 48 hours after they make them or something. So the other things are allowing the tutors to sign students in or sign students out, if that's something that you want them to also be able to help with. And the next one, this is actually really good if you have a lot of virtual tutors that may not come into the center. It says allow them to sign themselves in or out. And basically what they'll do, and in this account, I am actually a tutor, so you'll see this. When they click their name, they'll have an option here. Oh, here it is, sign into a location. And they can just click that, and then it'll kind of treat them like there's, ask them which center they're signing into, if there's multiple centers, and then they'll be signed in, and then they can clock out once they're done as well. So if you're collecting tutor work hours, then you could do that. And then we also have one for instructors. If your instructors are also doing like supplemental instruction at your center, you could also allow them to edit class attendance, but this is more for like the supplemental instruction. So this is an option there as well. And also this one here is for instructors. It says to allow them to access the assessments. So if you guys are completing session assessments on how they're doing each session, this would be a report that would be available to instructors. And then this one here just kind of applies generally. If you want the student ID to show up in those log screens, of course, you had to give them access to that. So if you're okay with the ID showing up, then you can keep that checked. If not, then we can leave it unchecked. I think it's unchecked by default. So. Of course, if you make any changes, you always want to save the control panel changes at the top. And that's it. So now let's switch gears, and we're going to actually look at the fourth role that I kind of didn't focus in on, and because it's really not a predefined role. So we have what we call system users, or basically admins in the system. And with a system user admin, we can set their scope. In other words, what locations they're able to modify, and their available permissions. So, what exactly they can and can't do within the system. Um, so once if you wanted to actually do that, you could actually create user-specific permissions in the form of what we call role group templates, and that's going to be found under Administration, Advanced Role Group Templates. You can assign an individual their own set of permissions, but if you create these role group templates, and actually that's down here at the bottom, it'll actually allow you to quickly assign that role to a set of admin. And we actually have some predefined ones in here, and we'll go over what those are once we get in the system. But these are some that we give you. And I know, for instance, like college admin is going to basically have all the permissions across the college. Center admin is going to have a few less. They're going to not have things that are maybe college-wide settings, but they're going to have mainly things that focus on the center and so forth. We also have like, report viewer role where they're really just able to pull reports and things like that, or accessing special sections like referrals. Okay. And so let's go ahead and take a look at that. All right. So the first thing, we're going to go back to the user account section. And if I were to just want to, make somebody an admin and give them a few permissions, I'm going to go ahead and look up, let's see, Robert. So let's say this was a student, but they also started working as a tutor for me. So I'm going to go ahead and, maybe go to their security, make them that tutor role. But I also need them to be able to help me set up maybe a kiosk. So I'm going to give them the system user admin role. And I'm going to limit their scope to only the area that I work in. So if it's the tutoring center, I'm going to go ahead and reselect that so they can only do that for that. And, if I don't have a role that I've created like this, let's say front desk workers thing, what I could do is actually just scroll down through this options and say, okay, I need them to be able to create sign-in stations. And maybe that's the only thing that I have them do, because that's an admin privilege that we're going to go ahead and give them. Save the changes, and now you can see they've got all those roles. So they can do everything that we allow students, everything we allow tutors, and then that one permission as an admin. Now, let's say I want to go ahead and make that a group if I haven't already. So I'm going to go under Administration, Advanced, and Role Group Templates. So I've actually created one here called Front Desk Staff, but I'm going to go ahead and show you from the new role that you would go up here and click that if you needed to create one. But I'm going to go ahead and click on this since I've already got it built. And you can see there's a lot of different permissions. I can change the page size. You can see there's about 40 or almost 50 permissions. But if I show just the ones I have selected, there's about 4 ones that I wanted to give my front desk staff so they can create sign-in stations, manage appointments for me, sign students in or out, and manage the waiting line essentially. So I'm happy with that. And once you give it a name and you've set all the permissions, you just save changes at the top. And then this will be available when I go to set the user scope. So if we go in there, and let's say I also want to make this student a admin and a tutor, just check that off, go to admin, and then right here where I can apply a template, I can actually give them the front desk staff. Now, if we look down, it's automatically checking all the boxes that I wanted. and just those ones. So I don't have to do this every time, like scroll down and make sure I hit the right ones. I'm not going to save that change, but just to show you. So that's pretty much it for that. Let's go ahead and look at our next topic. So the last thing is really, once you've assigned and given these permissions out, maybe it's the next semester and you're like, oh, okay, I'm not sure who has access to what. Who can I count on to be able to create sign-in stations or whatever it is. We have like 3 different reports that you can go ahead and access and try to figure that out. So the first one's system user permissions. So this is all of the admin. So remember how we call system users admin, essentially, all the admin permissions. So if I want to see that, I'm going to go to our reports section. And normally I can just type in permission or start to type it in, and then I see all 3 of those. So it's going to be this first one. And when I pull that report, it's going to give me a list of all the people and what their exact permissions are. So we can view that report. Now keep in mind, if the person's just a student or like have just another role, they will show up in this report if they don't have necessarily, oh no, I'm sorry, this one they have to be the system user or system admin to show up in this report. We'll see some of the other ones where if I want to see everyone, like this person actually does happen to be all 4 roles as well. But I know there was some that I was looking at that might even show if they just their other roles. So I'm gonna go ahead and close that. And let's go back. And actually just go back to reports, permissions, look at the user roles one. I think it might be this one because I could actually pre-select a set of users if I wanted to know what they had. Okay, let me see if this one. Oh, okay, yeah. So you can see like if there's some in this one, it'll just say that they have the student role, and then instead of showing like these are the permissions and the definition of what those permissions are, it'll just say that they have student or student instructor. So this one you do have to be careful with. This was the second one in the list. I think it said user roles and permissions. And let's see, and then we're gonna look at that last one real quick, and then we'll take some questions. So this one's permissions by role templates. So it's a little different. This one's like if you actually created those role templates, who has that? And I could actually select a role template. Let's say we look at that front desk staff and CSV. Click that report. Oh, and you know what? Actually, it's just telling me what permissions are assigned for each role. So this is totally different. It doesn't have the users. It just shows me the permissions that I've assigned. So if I need to compare different roles that I've created, maybe I need to take away some things from a role or adjust those as needed. Maybe it was something I didn't understand that they would have. The last thing I do want to share before we switch over to the Q&A is we went through and redid the permission definitions in our support docs. And so I just wanted to share this link with you. So we've actually added, and I'm not sure why this isn't loading correctly. I think it's because I was zoomed in. Okay. We've actually added a column to the the user role permissions list. We used to just have like the name and the definition like you'll see in the software, but we also linked to each of the sections that they're going to have access to if you give them that permission. And just keep in mind that when you do give them those permissions to that section, it's usually as an admin. Sometimes, there are some asterisks here, like, for instance, they can only view and edit certain things, but usually you have to be careful with that because you're giving them like actual access as an admin. So if I give them appointment administrator, they're able to manage all appointments as an admin. So it's pretty neat if you wanted to go through that list. Certain settings give you a lot more permissions. Some of them just give you access to one section. And then of course, like if it applies to the college level only, or if it can be applied to centers or locations, like when you set their scope. So it's pretty cool. And I'm going to share that in the chat real quick. All right, and that's all for me. Do we have any questions?
This is Tracy. I have one question.
Hey, Tracy, how are you?
Yeah, it's fine. I'm not able to, I guess I'm the top user administrator, and I'm not able to give myself roles like instructor or student. What would I need to do to be able to do that?
So typically what we recommend is like having somebody else that's essentially like your second in command that would have the same permissions as you. And what happens is if you have the same amount of permissions or greater, you can usually edit another admin. So if they have the same as you, then they're going to be able to go ahead and edit you and give you additional roles. Like if you want to be a tutor, instructor, and have all those other roles as well.
So I need to make somebody else, because when I go into mine, I can't see, I don't have those choices. So if they went in as a system admin, they would see those choices. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah. So
Okay.
one of the security features is basically so that you can't just elevate yourself like, oh, today I'm going to make myself like the president of the company or something. No. But like, yeah, just so there's kind of like some permission things like you can't change, like any user can't change their own like ID, first and last name, because those are required, fields. But it also applies with like permission settings too.
Okay, cool. That's easier than I thought it was going to be. All right. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you for that question.